We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. By the time you hear this, it's Friday. We're recording it Thursday night. We've got Eric with us tonight, and we're going to talk about all the shit that's going on. First of all, welcome, Eric. You're a sight for sore eyes. I'm looking forward to the conversation because I always seem to learn something.
Well, thanks for having me. I love being on the show, and I'm hoping once again I can give some insights and perspective and maybe calm some people down because this administration, good Lord, I miss the days when Bush was the dumbest person to ever be president. I really do.
Yeah, no, I do too. I miss George W. Bush, and I hate that motherfucker. Um, but we can talk about some of the stuff that's going on. I think the most interesting news was we had the Oversight Committee pressure Hilary Clinton to testify in front of them today, which she did. Bill's testifying today. That should be interesting. But I think we all believe that they should have thought twice about uh, forcing Hillary Clinton to come talk in the Oversight Committee. She's quite a bit smarter than anybody on that Oversight Committee, Democrats or Republicans. She's been through this stuff before. She has no real connection to Epstein. She's never been to the island. She's never met Jeffrey Epstein. The whole point of having her in this testimony was try to bully or pressure them, maybe try to scare them or throw them off or get them to say something. They apparently don't know who they're dealing with because uh, Hillary's not going to fall for that shit. She's 78 years old, but she's still sharp as a tack.
Yeah, you would think they would learn from their lesson, but see, Hillary's always been their ultimate boogeyman, or at least
Yeah.
one of them, going all the way back to her time as First Lady. Then she was Secretary of State, and they just want to do whatever they can to embarrass her. And it's not working. They bring her into the oversight committee. They want to get her to testify because they want a gotcha moment. They want her to say something that specifically implicates Bill or something like that, where they can come out and say, well, see, Bill Clinton's in the files. Bill Clinton's in the files. Why aren't you mad about it? When they don't understand, we are mad. If he's there, we want him held accountable. This is just a smokescreen trying to divert and distract away from the fact that Donald Trump is in the files, you know, thousands and thousands of times.
Well, and what happened with Hillary Clinton, I heard some people in that meeting say that she pretty much ran circles around the Republicans, which isn't surprising at all. But what happened with her is pretty much the same thing that happened with Jack Smith. Oh my God, we got Jack Smith. We're going to trip him up. We're going to scare him. We're going to intimidate him. And then when it was all said and done, the Republicans didn't say much. They even released the videotape of it and the transcripts. And Jack Smith ran circles around them. Sounds like that's exactly what happened with Hillary Clinton, and we may get the transcripts and the video of this too. But she made some great points. She was saying, "I've never met the man, but why aren't we talking about people who were clearly involved in the Epstein files, like Donald Trump, like Howard Lutnick, like all these fucks that are deeply entrenched in the files?" And I don't understand the Republicans putting her in a position to do this to tear them up, but they fucking did it anyways. And I think it largely had to do with Donald Trump insisting on it. A calmer mind would not have done that, but Donald Trump continually forces lawyers and members of Congress to do stupid shit.
Yeah, they do things like that at his request, mostly because they don't want to deal with the fallout. They tell him no, and besides the ketchup thrown at the wall, he goes on a 3 hour True Social rant about how inept they are and they need to be primaried and this and that and the third. And they just don't want to deal with it. So they do the thing and then they look dumb for doing it. And Donald Trump never gets it that it was their idea to make him look to do it in the first place, or that he looks dumb for having them do it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why people don't learn lessons. You know, we've got lawyers that have been sanctioned, lawyers that have been disbarred, fired, whatever, but they still keep doing whatever Donald Trump says. I don't know what power Donald Trump has over these people. including members of Congress. They continue to do stupid stuff that they know is wrong, but they still do it anyway. It's going to be interesting listening to this testimony. More than anything, the one common thread between all these hearings that Republicans are having, nothing has been accomplished. Nothing has been found out. We've got Bill Clinton coming up today, and Bill Clinton's just as sharp as anybody, maybe not as sharp as Hillary. But in my mind, well, what Hillary did today is pretty much what I expected, kind of turning it back on him, making him look stupid. I personally think Bill, at his advanced age, his cognitive ability, and just who Bill Clinton is, I'm expecting pretty much a rerun of what happened with Les Wexner. Oh, I don't know. I don't remember. I wasn't part of that. I didn't know him after he was, just the same old bullshit. This isn't a court of law. So nothing's going to come out of it at all. There is no value to it at all.
No, it's all about embarrassment, and it's all about because there's some pictures that show Bill Clinton and Epstein, or was it Epstein or Maxwell, one of the two together, at least in the same room. Nothing that shows that they did anything wrong, but it's all about trying to embarrass Bill Clinton and trying to deflect away from Donald Trump, who we know is in the files, who has said things about, underage girls, has a creepy State of the Union where he pans around to the crowd numerous times and he's talking about varying young girls that they have invited for whatever reason. Um, Talked about walking into the dressing rooms of girls when he owned Miss Teen USA, and he was allowed to do it because he was the owner. Not that it was
Yeah.
the right thing to do or that, whatever, but well, I own the pageant, so I just get to. This is a man who is flaunting the fact that he could be in the files, or is in the files rather, um, right in front of us. And they're trying to embarrass and muddy the waters to protect him when they should be going after him.
I find it funny you suggesting that the Republicans want to embarrass or shame Bill Clinton. Remember, Bill Clinton, while he was president, he was caught getting a blowjob from an intern in the White House. You got to go pretty far to embarrass Bill Clinton at this point after going through that whole experience.
Very true. The one thing I hope the Democrats actually ask Bill Clinton under oath is, "Are you Bubba?" And he comes out and says, "Yes, I am." That would be the icing on the cake.
Well, I think the question that should be asked, though, I don't know if they asked it of Hillary. I didn't hear anything about it. And I will tell you anything, if the Republicans came up with anything on Hillary Clinton of any value, of any importance, they'd be crowing about it right now. Just like Jack Smith. If they came out, if they got something out of it, they would have been screaming about it, and they never said a word. Uh, but somebody needed to ask Hillary, or at least Bill Clinton, how frequently did you see Donald Trump in the proximity of Jeffrey Epstein? How many of these events did you see Donald Trump, former president, under oath, answering that question? That could be very valuable and very difficult for Donald Trump to turn around.
Oh, that would be huge. That's not the question I thought you were going to say, but former first lady or a former president saying, "Oh yeah, I saw Bill Clinton there at every event Epstein was hosting. They were best friends." That would be bad news for Donald
Yeah,
Trump.
it would be. And, it's just makes sense too. They go after Bill Clinton and they go after Hillary Clinton to testify because they think they're going to own the libtards. But they didn't think ahead. They didn't think about the possibility of an exposure because if, Hillary didn't meet Jeffrey Epstein, she wasn't on the island. Um, but Bill Clinton was. So he has some firsthand experience as to where Donald Trump was in this whole thing. And I've said this before too. Everybody's so focused on the island where all the nasty stuff happened. Well, that's not the only place it happened. He had a huge building in New York. He had a place in Florida. He had a place in New Mexico, a place in Paris. And we understand that some of these crimes happened in those locations. So if you tell me, well, I've never been to the island, but I live in New York City down the block from Jeffrey Epstein and we're best buddies, I don't care about the island. This could have happened anywhere. In fact, we're hearing that some of these crimes even were committed at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me that they did happen at Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump has thought for years that he is the master strategist, that he is above it all, and because of his privilege of being wealthy, that it doesn't matter. He can do whatever he wants. And it's time for these wealthy people to be held accountable. One thing I saw a TikTok creator talking about, and they said one way Democrats could win in 2028 is with two words: the Epstein class. Talking
Yeah.
about getting rid of the Epstein class of people, this group of people with so much money that they can feel like they are so far above the law because they hold all the cards. And we need to focus on getting rid of them as having that much, money. There's no reason somebody like Elon Musk should be closing in on having $1 trillion of wealth.
No, hell no. And we're hearing more things about these Jeffrey Epstein files. They released the 3 million, and granted, it was going to take a while for people to dig some things out. But we know that there's at least 50 pages of things that directly implicate Donald Trump in complaints or accusations, where he was involved with a 13-year-old girl with Jeffrey Epstein and some other things too. Now, not surprisingly, those things have gone missing. But while we know these accusations are there and they're pretty credible because they went through the FBI for quite a while, they had a 302 on it. Epstein ended up paying the girl off. So this is a legitimate accusation. The real question is there was no investigation in that. They aren't being called to testify in front of Congress. It's clearly a cover up. I mean, they're not even trying to cover up the cover up. It's pretty blatant.
Yeah, very much so that they are trying to cover up the cover up. Now, I heard a story a while back, and I don't know if there's any truth to it, but that Epstein has storage lockers all across the country full of evidence. I don't know if it's true, but why? But if we're hearing about it in the media, why hasn't the DOJ looked into it? Why isn't there more information released? And somebody said that Epstein had like 60 terabytes of data that the DOJ is actually in possession of. It's not just the 3 million files or the 6 million files that we know about. Like, it is ridiculously massive, and they are not, looking through any of it, or they're not releasing any of it and saying, well, you have it all right now. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, you know, they told us that they had 3 million more to put out and they're not going to put them out. But again, we're talking about the DOJ. We're talking about Pam Bondi, the idea that they might lie to us. I mean, I'm hearing some crazy motherfucking shit about some people have been talking about the other files that haven't come out yet, talking about murder, cannibalism, for fuck's sake. I don't even know what that's all about. But what's in those files appears to be almost everything QAnon told us about the Democrats way back when. I mean, that was some
Sounds
weird,
like
sick
it, yeah.
shit. And now we're seeing this actual weird, sick shit show up in documentation and emails and that sort of thing. It's fucking crazy.
Well, when it comes to Donald Trump and Republicans anymore, every accusation is a confession. Or, you know,
Seems to
yeah, that's the way
be.
I meant to say that. They come out and say the Democrats are doing this. Pretty soon you find out, nope, it was the Republicans. Oh, they're doing this. Nope. Turns out it was it was the Republicans. One thing after the other.
I just went to AI and I asked, did Jeffrey Epstein have storage lockers all over the country? So what it said, recent reports suggest that Jeffrey Epstein did in fact utilize a network of rented storage units across the United States. Now the question is, what is the source? And it says, according to documents reviewed by the Telegraph in February 2026, there is evidence that Epstein paid private investigators to move computers and other materials into at least 6 different storage facilities. The reporting indicates this was likely done to keep these items away from investigators after he received tips about potential raids in the mid 2000s, which happened. For as connected as Jeffrey Epstein was, it isn't a stretch to believe that he did have movers come in and pull out a lot of the real rough material, like pictures and that sort of stuff, and move them to storage lockers. So if we know there are storage lockers, you would hope that we would be able to find out where they are and access them. The only concern I have is the people that would access them would probably be the FBI and the DOJ. And unfortunately, we cannot fucking trust them.
No, we can't trust the DOJ or the FBI. Uh, we'd have a better chance believing in the DOJ and the FBI after 2028.
Yeah.
But even then, it depends who they put in as Attorney General. If it's a weak ass bitch like Merrick Garland, well, can we trust him?
I'm wondering, we're seeing more and more that it's looking like the Democrats will take power in the House. I think that's a foregone conclusion, and possibly the Senate. Even though we'll still have Pam Bondi or somebody similar to Pam Bondi as the DOJ, having control in Congress, will that help us at all in exposing some of these things that Bondi and everybody else is trying so hard to cover up?
It would help us some because they can do their version of this oversight committee hearing that we're seeing. They would actually be able to do a full investigation, maybe make it a select committee, subpoena power, getting access to documents, releasing a presentation. All of it would help. The big thing is it would be an embarrassment to Donald Trump. Every step of it would be an embarrassment. Democrats having control of the House, blocking everything he wants to do. Um, and then them doing any investigation into anything and everything that he currently has going on would be a huge embarrassment to Donald Trump. Although I don't think he lives that long. I don't know that he's got more than a couple months left.
Yeah, that's probably true. If there are storage lockers around the country or in various parts of the country, maybe 6 of them, you would have to presume that since Jeffrey Epstein is dead, the estate is kind of scattered. You would have to assume that they're probably not paying for those storage lockers. So if we find out that's the case, I would submit to you that you and I should go storage wars, go with a couple $100 and buy some of those lockers and expose them ourselves.
There is a chance that some of those lockers may have actually ended up that way. And if they just looked like old computer junk, and if it wasn't anything in hard physical, media, and it was just looked like old computers that had ended up in a junkyard somewhere, that had ended up in a landfill, because they said, well, this is computer stuff from the early 2000s. Who cares? And threw
Yeah,
it away.
that's possible, but it sounds like at least one storage unit survived, and somehow the Telegraph and other people are getting it. You have to wonder if some civilian didn't end up with it and is just selling it off to the highest bidder, being Telegraph. I don't know, but I've said this before. We don't need all the files. We don't need all the storage units. We just need one good picture, one good video, one set of documents to take down Donald Trump. And once he's down, everything else comes spilling out like a broken cesspool pipe. He's the one that's holding this back from the top. And when he's no longer able to do that, they're going to be hard pressed to keep it away from the public.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I've been saying for a while that there's going to probably be an image that comes out, something they can't control. We hear France is looking into people, Germany's looking into people, England's looking into people. That and the evidence somewhere, something is going to come out that Donald Trump can't cover, and I'm thinking it's going to be, by comparison to the rest of the files, a mild photo. And while it's still disturbing, I'm thinking it's going to be something like Donald Trump with a teenager who's not wearing any clothes or maybe just topless sitting on his lap. Something by comparison to the atrocities we have heard in the files, mild by that comparison. But it'll be enough. It's something they can't refute, they can't walk away from. And I think when that happens, I think you are going to watch the dominoes fall of the Republican Party, and it's going to come quick. They are going to move on him, they are going to turn. And I think those conversations are already happening behind closed doors.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. I mean, I would hope they would be. They've got to see the writing on the wall that Donald Trump cannot last either morally or politically or legally. The shit's coming apart, and um, we're already like you're saying, we're seeing people get arrested in England. We're seeing people getting arrested in other parts of the world, and that's what's interesting. We've got people getting arrested in other parts of the world, and we can't even get a fucking investigation in our part of the world. That's what's so troubling, and that's why this just screams cover up.
I was on a live with Chucker T the other night, and I don't remember the username of the guy that was in there from England, but they were talking about how severe what they did with Prince Andrew actually is.
Yeah,
And this was from an English perspective. It's been over 400 years since the English have arrested somebody who is in line for the throne. Andrew is still eighth in line, you know, barring some miracle. Like if something drastic happened, he could still become king. And
yeah.
they have put him in handcuffs. And now they are going through, and Parliament is taking steps to remove him from the line of succession. Now, it's not a simple process, from what I understand. They have to go, England has to pass it, then like Canada has to pass it, Australia, and a bunch of other places that are still part of the Commonwealth would all have to agree that he is no longer in the line of succession. But the fact that they are doing it at all speaks volumes. This was a serious thing. And what they charged him with was like misuse of public office or something like that. And it sounds like a generic term,
Yeah.
but this is an overarching umbrella thing where he was like a trade ambassador as part of his duties of being a royal. And they it sounds like they have him on not only the partying with Epstein stuff that they could throw in there as a charge, but apparently he maybe gave out classified and state secret information as well. And the penalty could be life in prison for this, what sounds like a innocuous charge. It's one they take very seriously.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like treason to a certain extent. People went around saying, I mean, after we saw Andrew coming out of jail in a car, laying back, guy looks absolutely devastated, absolutely terrified. And some people have said, well, he'll sing like a canary. And, you know, he's an entitled guy. He's got a lot taken away from him. If he wants to survive, he might sing like a canary. My question is this: if they're getting him in the UK regarding giving away information and the administrative stuff, will they even want to hear anything, or will he have any avenue to expose other people that were involved in the actual physical crimes with the children, or will that just not come up because that's not what the UK is dealing with?
It sounds like the overarching crime, though, they are looking at everything from what I understand. So if that comes up, they may be willing to listen to it, and maybe in some kind of a deal that would uh, keep him maybe either out of prison or from spending the rest of his days in prison. They may accept it. And we know Donald Trump likes to piss off England, and he pisses off the rest of the world. If they get some leverage against Donald Trump, maybe they would be willing to cut a deal to turn on Donnie and say, "Hey, we have this. Balls in your court, America." You know,
Well,
this
the thing
could
about
end
it,
up being huge.
It's going to be huge. Thing about Andrew is this: he did whatever he did to violate crimes or violate laws in the UK, but he is seriously implicated in the abuse of girls in this country. There should, at the very least, be a further investigation into Prince Andrew and possibly an indictment and possibly prosecution of him for crimes he committed in this country. But again, he, like everybody else, have not yet been investigated.
Yeah, I don't expect him to be investigated till the Democrats take back over in 29. Now, I am convinced the Democrats are going to win, but when they do, they need to put a bulldog in an attorney general, someone willing to go after people and
Yeah.
not just say, well, it's okay, or well, it's this, or well, it's that, or it's political. We'll let the political system handle it. No, if you are in the files, and I don't care who you are, I don't care if you are sitting in the White House, I don't care if you are, you know, a member of Congress, a Supreme Court justice. If you are in the files, you need to be held accountable. If you have done something to children, you should be held to task and given whatever charges they can levy.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more this goes on, the more implicated Pam Bondi and Cash Patel and everybody are in this whole cover up. And in the United States of America, maybe the nastiest word when it comes to illegalities is cover up. People in this
Mm-hmm.
country hate fucking cover ups. They hated when Bill Clinton covered up. That's why he got impeached. Not for the blowjob. He got covered because he lied to Congress.
It was
He was trying to
perjury.
cover it up. Right. And then same thing with Watergate. It was a lot to do with the cover up. That's why John Mitchell went to jail. So I don't know if Pam Bondi is just delusional enough to think that she's not going to be implicated, but without question, she's going to be implicated. There's going to be a lot of retribution um, imposed on Pam Bondi. And, you know, when we were looking at her testimony, I don't know if you noticed it, she seemed very nervous and very frantic. I think she's finally starting to realize she's going to get questions she can't answer. It's clearly looking like a cover up. And she may just now be starting to get nervous.
Yeah, I think she is, especially when Representative Lou said, I just caught you with perjury and it was on tape. And she freaked out. She's
She
like, don't
did.
you dare accuse me of a crime. He's like, no, you just committed perjury. We have it on tape. And when we take over the House, we are going to impeach you. He didn't mince words. He didn't, beat around the bush. And I think they are starting to realize they're screwed. Quick aside, I want to complain about something real quick because you mentioned Watergate. This is
Yeah,
just a pet peeve of mine. Whenever, we call it the Watergate scandal because it happened involving the Watergate Hotel.
right.
I hate how every scandal now has become blank gate. It drives me nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of came into the lexicon. It was the first time we had a scandal like that where it was identified and named. That was right around the time. Here's a pet peeve of mine. I don't know if you see it as much anymore, but you used to see it a lot. Every time there was um, some conflict or some scandal or something like that, they would typically add on "gate" on the end of it.
That's what
But a
I'm
lot
talking
of
about. Yeah.
right, but a lot of networks would also come up with catchy titles every time they came on. You know, the battle in the desert, or or whatever they called it. And it's so show busy, and it's generally it's a horrific type of thing. I get really tired of the media turning everything into a fucking tabloid.
Yeah, I do too. And the whole thing, like we talk about Watergate. Now, Watergate was before my time, but I've read quite a bit about it. And it took years for everything with Watergate to actually come to light. And ultimately, Nixon was taken out by his own recordings,
Right.
basically his own incompetence. And I think that's something similar that is what is going to happen to Donald Trump if the Big Mac doesn't get him first. I mean, we saw he just had the U.S. men's hockey team at the White House, serves them dinner for winning the Olympics. And what does he serve them? Fucking McDonald's.
Look at McDonald's. I just read something. McDonald's is coming out with a new hamburger, the biggest hamburger ever. It's basically going to be two quarter pounder hamburgers, three types of cheese, lettuce, tomato, pickle, and the sauce. We need Donald Trump to scarf down a couple of those and go into arrhythmia and maybe get a blood clot or something and just take that motherfucker out. He loves McDonald's. You know why? You know why they say he likes McDonald's? He's so paranoid. He thinks somebody's going to do something to his food, and he feels safer if it's coming directly from McDonald's. Now, I will say this: if people knew who was going to be eating it, you may not get poisoned, but you may get your share of saliva in that motherfucker.
Saliva, among other things, probably.
Yeah,
Um, but the thing with it is, he's paranoid. He is very freaking out about everything. But you talk about the Big Mac getting him. You saw the State of the Union? He didn't look
I
good.
did. No, and that's the next thing I wanted to bring up, the State of the Union.
Like,
That was big. I don't know. Did you notice at the State of the Union? It was a weird thing for him to do this because it was at 9 o'clock Eastern time, prime sundowning time for Donald Trump. He was obviously propped up with a Adderall or something like that. But did you notice in the first part of that speech, he was really kind of talking fast and frenetic, and he seemed nervous as hell. You know, this is one of the first times everything's going badly, and he knows he's going to be heckled. So he seemed to be nervous about it up front.
I didn't notice that he was nervous, but I could clearly tell he was on something because he was jazzed. He was more of the firebrand. But you get to that second hour, and he's back to being more laid back. Oh, it's so bad. Oh, he'd no more get two sentences out, and they'd be standing up and applauding at everything he said, like it was some big thing. And that's when he turned it almost into a WWE show. That's when the
Yeah.
hockey team came out. They did the medal award somewhere, and I'm not, I from what I understand, both of the service members that got the Medal of Honor deserving, from what I understand. But then it was he would pander to the crowd and, well, this person's here tonight, and this was so bad under, this happened to them, and this and this and this. It's like he was out of steam at that point, but he knew, or he felt like he had to keep going to have this long State of the Union to try to prove how fit and everything he was. And I think it did the opposite effect.
No, I think it did do the opposite effect. That's not surprising with Donald Trump because, as we know, Donald Trump always fucks up. He has a plan, and it always goes south. Um, yeah, when he announced those veterans, I have no qualms with the veterans. They probably deserve the medals they got. I would suggest, though, that Donald Trump himself didn't know who they were, didn't care if they were qualified. He basically said, "Get me two veterans to give an award away so that I can at least distract a little bit or garner some positivity for myself." I mean, he got heckled his share too, and it seems like Susie Wiles, his chief of staff, was trying to keep him on script for most of the time. And largely he was on script up until the time that Rashida Tlaib said, "What about the Epstein files?" That threw him off a little bit and he got angry. Then Ilhan Omar said, "You're killing American people." And he said, "You should be ashamed." And later on, he said that Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and Robert De Niro should be deported. For
What
you
did De
know,
Niro do?
Oh, De Niro was at some talk. He might have been at the alternative State of the Union too, and he said some disparaging remarks about Donald Trump. That's nothing new. He's done it before. But I'm sure Robert De Niro is thinking to himself, "I'm at the top of my game. Nobody's more popular or well known than I am in entertainment. I'm going to say whatever the fuck I think, and everybody else can fuck themselves." But he said some negative things about Donald Trump, and it doesn't take long for Donald Trump to hear this shit. And when it does, he has to strike back. He has to strike back. And the best thing he can come up with, they should be deported. Well, they're all citizens. So fuck yourself.
Yeah, Donnie doesn't have the best track record for brilliant ideas. But speaking of his health, did you notice in that second hour the lean, his normal lean, like because he stands at an angle anyway, he leans way forward, which is a sign of dementia. It was getting worse, and he
Yeah.
was gripping onto that podium for dear life. And I was watching a TikTok, I think, or something, and they were talking about it in the comments. He hasn't done the accordion hands unless he's sitting
No.
down. He doesn't
Yeah.
do it unless he's sitting down. He almost always now has one hand on the podium. And his arm looked really stiff when he was leaving, like he was having troubles. The time might be like this could be getting really close to the end for Donnie. And this isn't wishful thinking. This is just looking at how he is going. There's something seriously wrong with this man, and he should not be the president of the United States.
Well, there's any number of reasons why he shouldn't be the president of the United States, but as far as his health, it's diminishing quickly. It's just silly when he says some of the things he says. It's just almost embarrassing. The whole thing with the hockey team. I don't know if you paid much attention to that. The women won the gold medal. They dominated the Olympics. The men won the gold medal. Cash Patel shows up in the locker room drinking beer, broing out with his buddies, trying to attach himself to any kind of positivity. Donald Trump calls and kind of admonishes or disparages the girls, and all the guys in the locker room laughed about it. And people are pretty upset about it. And I think the women are upset about it, and justifiably so. Um, I saw TikTokers doing a parody on this, looking at the men's hockey team and said, "You know how much money you fucking cost us? We had endorsements and brand deals all set up, and now nobody wants to touch you because you dumbass laughed like little fucking hyenas." And I think there's probably some truth to that. I mean, I know
I
in
hope
80,
so.
the gold medal winners did a lot of endorsements, but nobody's going to want these fucking clowns to endorse anything.
Well, and on top of it, they accepted the um, trip to the White House. Okay, you know what? You won a gold medal, fair enough. But then you come in to the State of the Union like they did there for 30 seconds or whatever they were there
Yeah.
as a showpiece. You're just embarrassing yourselves. They're probably going to lose some brand deals. And then Donald Trump says, "Well, I probably better invite the women too, or they'll use that against me too."
And
Like
impeach me.
he straight up said it that he didn't want to invite him, but he had to because it'd make him look bad. Like he doesn't
Yeah.
even realize by saying that makes him look bad. The man is so far gone. I don't know how people on the right still defend him anymore.
Well, here's the thing. I did TikTok about this. What happened in that locker room has been happening day after day after day since he stepped off that golden elevator or escalator. If you ever notice when he was in business, he would come up with fucked up ideas or stupid ideas, and everybody around, and he'd make jokes because Donald Trump thinks he's a comedian. He makes these inappropriate jokes, and everybody around him laughs because he's the president or he's the rich guy or he's the boss. He has the power. They did it in his business, they did it on his television show. He could say the dumbest shit and everybody just kind of laughed. Oh, that's just Donnie. It's happened with Congress and other politicians. He'll say something outrageous that they know is outrageous, and they'll just laugh and pat him on the back. They do it in the media. So this whole scenario plays out all the time. It just so happened it was the Olympic hockey players. Now, these guys are in their 20s. They're probably very talented hockey players, but kind of dumbasses in terms of life experience and just the problem of having more testosterone than you do intelligence. Uh, but this kind of thing happens all the time. It hasn't been until the hockey team did it that there's some shame for it.
Yeah, there should have been shame for it a lot longer ago than this. I mean, Donald Trump has been um, like this his entire life. He
Yeah.
doesn't have the first clue about most things, about being tactful or having decorum or anything like that. He is first and foremost a juvenile that has been allowed to grow up to be 78 years old. He never fully grew up. He does because nobody around him ever put him in his place and said, "No, dipshit, you can't act like that in polite society."
Well, exactly. He's been allowed to do this most of his life, if not all of his life, and certainly during his political life. He's never been held to account. He's been able to do whatever he wants. And now he's feeling a little surprised that he's getting pushback on something he's always done and always been allowed to do. And I think that's one of the things we need to do is push back against him more. The media just let him run roughshod. Republicans let him do whatever the fuck he wanted. He needs that pushback because he needs to be popular. He needs to be thought of as smart and funny. And if we can put the point across that he's none of those things, that maybe it will settle him down a little bit. I doubt it, but maybe.
No, you're probably, I think you're wrong on that one. It's not going to settle him down. It's going to escalate him becoming more and more unhinged. And it's going to make it harder and harder for them to
That's probably
defend
true.
all of the actions he's taking. I mean, I really think watching him at the State of the Union, he was fighting to hold it together for as long as he did. That's why the first half and the second half are two wildly different clips.
Yeah.
And I think if they could have gotten him to shut up after the first hour, he probably would have had a successful State of the Union. Not in because he said anything of value, but he would have probably gotten away without really embarrassing himself. But Donald Trump, being who he is, had to go for that hour and 48 minutes or whatever he went, had to have the longest because he's trying to have some kind of notoriety in the record books. And I saw somebody on TikTok, I wish I could remember who. I don't know if you were in TJ or in Truckers Live when I said this the other night, but I saw somebody on TikTok mention it. They go, when he is at taking his last breaths and he is leaving this mortal coil, what somebody needs to do and have the last thing he hears be, "We are going to erase you from the history books."
Uh, that would kill him. I mean, isn't it funny how any kind of failure or loss just occupies his mind? I mean, he's still worried about the 2020 election. He's still
Yes.
very angry at Barack Obama. Anybody that slighted him, made fun of him, or said he lost, he can't let go of it. I mean, the 2020
No.
election is 6 years ago. He should focus on what's more important. He just can't do it. He's got to continue to push and try to prove that the 2020 election was rigged like he said it was. And he ain't going to give up until he gets it done. And he won't ever get it done.
No, he's going to keep pushing and beating that dead horse, even if at this point, if he found irrefutable proof that he won 2020, something that everybody could agree on proves he was right, it's not going to change anything. It was 6 years ago. The entire
Yeah.
term is over at this point. The only thing it would do is soothe his ego because he cannot accept the fact that this country at one point in time all agreed he should go fuck himself. And I
Right.
think that number of people who are at the point where they think he should go fuck himself again is rather high. The problem is There was a section of voters in this country who thought people like you, people like me, people on the left who were saying how bad his presidency was going to be did not believe us because they thought, oh, clearly it can't be that bad. You guys are just exaggerating. And now they're seeing it and they're going, oh, fuck. Oh,
Yeah.
fuck. What did we do? What did we do?
Yeah. I want to bring something up because I know people are worried about it, and I thought you might be able to offer some insights. You know, the Republicans want to pass the SAVE Act, and they got it through the House. It doesn't appear as they have any chance to get it through the Senate, so it will not be law. So now Donald Trump, knowing this, is decided to say that he's going to sign an executive order to force people to have proof of citizenship before they vote. People tend to believe Donald Trump when he makes threats. What I think is ridiculous is because we know he's also a pathological liar and we know he always fucks up. But what would you say to somebody who's worried that he's going to try to game the system in the elections and the midterms, whether it be by uh, executive order to force everybody to prove citizenship or whatever else he wants to do? What are your thoughts on the midterms with regards to that?
Okay, well, touching on the SAVE Act for a minute, one of his big things that he wants is no mail-in voting. Republicans didn't put that in the SAVE Act. They said
Right.
no. And so even if this thing passes, which it won't because they can't get past the filibuster, and Republicans see the writing on the wall, they know at some point, and it could be as early as the midterms, they're not going to be the majority in the Senate. They are not going to nuke the filibuster for the SAVE Act and for Donald Trump. They've said as much. They said, no, we want to keep the filibuster. Go fuck yourself. As far as this executive order, he's tried it before. He
Yeah.
did this last year. He put an executive order out. It was one of the first things he did. And federal judge already said, unconstitutional, go fuck yourself. And he thinks now he's going to get away with it because he's going to declare it a national emergency.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the fact that the order itself is unconstitutional. You've tried it before. A federal judge said, go fuck yourself. And I believe your own DOJ didn't even attempt to appeal it, and you just let it ride.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because I know there are people who are worried about it. There are people out there that are just desperate to find something to worry about. And there's plenty of things to be concerned about at this point, but we can't wrap ourselves up in all this fear and ridiculousness because that's the only way Donald Trump wins. He's a bully. And when you're afraid of a bully, the bully wins. I choose not to give my bully or any bully a win. They're going to have to fight for this bullshit. I'll spit in your eye before you scare me because there's only so much he can do. Um, if the Republicans weren't worried about the midterms, they wouldn't be doing all this shit and talking about all this shit. But it's all shit they really can't control because, as we've said so many times before, elections are run by the state, not by the federal government. They don't have any authority over it. There's nothing they can really do.
No, there really isn't a lot they can do. And when it comes to this voter ID bullshit, I'm going to go out on a little bit of a tangent here, but there's a major reason we have a problem with it. And the right likes to think that we have a problem with going in, pulling out our driver's license and going, here, this proves who I am. I get a vote. That's not what this law and what they want to do. They
Right.
want you to get a separate ID that proves your citizenship in order to vote. And that's going to cost money. That makes it a poll tax. And not everybody has all of the documentation that would be required to get that ID. So again, having to go pay for those documents and take the time makes it a tax, makes it a poll tax because you need all of it to vote. It's not about having to show an ID to go vote. Most places, I know here in Iowa, I have to show an ID. If I
Yeah.
don't show an ID, I have to take in two pieces of mail, one of them being something official. Like I can't just bring in two pieces of junk mail, but I have to bring in like a bank record or something from the city, something like that, two
Electric
pieces
bill.
of
So
something like that. Yeah, that show who I am. And even then, I'm only given a provisional ballot. And then, when with that provisional ballot, if anybody else tries to vote as you and they have an ID, that provisional ballot doesn't count. There's
right,
already checks and balances in place to prevent you from voting or if you're not an American citizen. In fact, the Heritage Foundation did a 15-year deep dive and they found like 50 cases roughly over 15 years.
right.
And every case they found of somebody voting who shouldn't have been able to had been turned over for prosecution. They found like one guy in Utah who had registered but never voted, and he registered when he shouldn't have been able to, but never voted, never tried. It's
Yeah.
not a problem that is actually out there.
Now there was a story that came out about Georgia and Elon Musk, and there's been some misunderstandings about what really happened. It was reported for a while that Elon Musk somehow was involved with bringing in ballots that were already um, pre-filled out. I'm understanding now that that wasn't the case. It was more like registration or questionnaires that were pre-filled out and sent to Georgia. Nonetheless, there's something fishy going on there. What's your thought on what's happening with Georgia and Fulton County?
I don't know. I know Fulton County is suing, trying to get their voting machines and their voting ballots and all of that back. But even if they get it back at this point, the damage has been done. You have people who are unauthorized to have, if they had access to the machines, then you can't trust them, so they'll have to get new machines. This is all about trying to get doubt sown into the election. Donald Trump wants to have an excuse ready to go. He wants to point to irregularities or what have you, saying, see, they cheated, trust me, they cheated. Because look all the way back to 2016 in the Iowa caucuses. He loses the Iowa caucus to Ted Cruz. Comes out immediately. Ted Cruz only won because he cheated.
Yeah,
Night of, the night of when that uh, decision came out, he says they cheated. That is how ridiculous this man is. He has said it every step of the way. Well, the only way they could beat me is if they cheat. Only way they can beat me is if they cheat. He is trying to lay a better foundation and a better groundwork, at least in the public, for when he loses the midterms. He's terrified that he is going to lose the House and the Senate by such a large margin that it could be the end of his presidency. I mean, Mike Johnson basically said as much. He goes, if we lose the House, it's the fundamental end to Donald Trump's presidency.
and it's true. I mean, if they just lose the House, there's virtually nothing they can do. The Democrats can shut down anything he wants to do. And it's going to be interesting. I think you're absolutely right because he did it in 2016 and he did it in 2020 and he did it in 2024. He's laying out some groundwork so that he has something to argue with after the fact. He's not very confident that he's going to win. He wasn't even confident he was going to win in 2024. So he's laying some groundwork so he can go, see, I told you, see, I told you this. And he's doing the same thing for 2026 here. Um, People think that he's got some deep, dark plan to steal the election. I don't think he does. I mean, if he was going to steal elections, there's been a bunch of elections already that happened where the Republicans got wiped out. If you were going to do something, you would have done something with them, and they didn't. Um, he just needs something to whine about after the fact because he can't admit he's wrong or he lost.
Well, speaking of elections, he lost three on Tuesday, on the night of the State of the Union.
Really?
Three, there were two state races in Pennsylvania and one in Maine. I think it was Maine, all for
Yeah.
state legislature seats. Democrats won them all.
Wow.
Every all of these races and when where people things are going on, it's all looking like he is going to get wiped out. Now, I am not going out on a limb and saying that it's definite that they take the Senate yet. I'm still skeptical. that's going to be a little harder. But with the number of people who are not running for reelection, that changes the math dramatically for how these races play out.
You've talked about this before. We know there's more than 30 people on the Republican side of Congress that have decided not to run for reelection. And that's not unusual given a situation where they know they're going to get wiped out. They'd rather just quit and turn tail and run as opposed to get beat. We've got people still probably in the funnel to resign. We're down to one seat separation between Democrats and Republicans. Um, there's got to be a lot of nerves going on. Mike Johnson, as you mentioned, he's an absolute piece of shit. His power is hanging by a fucking thread, and you can see it in his face when he talks.
Oh, yeah. Now, there is a special election coming up in what would it be, about 11 days from when this airs? 12 days, something like that, March 10th. Um, I believe is the date. That is for Marjorie Taylor Greene's old seat. And that one has a potential of either flipping or running to a runoff where both contestants in the runoff are Democrats. You add in the fact Mickey Sherrill's seat is going to be up for grabs. That one is a guaranteed pickup for the Democrats. There's a seat out in California that was Republican held, but at the rate these races are flipping, that could be a flip, especially considering it's one of the districts that's being redistricted out. Who knows how that's going to play out. If all three of those races flip to Democrats, it will be 218 Republican to 217 Democrat. Now, Neil Dunn in Florida has come out and said, nope, I'm just going to resign at the end of my term. I'm not dropping out early. The Republicans got to him. They talked him into staying, but it sounds like his health isn't great. He may not make it to the end of his term anyway.
Right. Well, and I've said before, much like we experienced with Joe Manchin when he was that Democrat that wasn't really a Democrat, and he gained a lot of power because he was that one pivotal vote. He could go either way, and he played that for all it's worth. Um, I would think there's somebody that's maybe ambitious or greedy in the Republican Party right now in the House of Representatives that are saying, if I don't get my way, I'm just going to fucking quit right now. In fact, Lauren Boebert even made that claim after going through some shit for a little bit. Um, I would think there's a lot of pressure being put on Mike Johnson because there's a lot of Republicans that probably aren't happy right now, and they could demand a lot. They could hold him for ransom if two people quit. That would be a fucking mess.
If if the Democrats pick up all three seats and one person defects, switches parties, Democrats have the majority. That's how close this. We haven't had a House of Representatives on this razor thin of a majority in well over decades. I know it was really bad in 1929 after the stock market crash. I think they think even then the Republicans had just a slightly better lead than they do right now. And that's saying something.
So,
As far
so
as
if we get a switch though, where now the Democrats have 218 and the Republicans have 217, and we're this close to the midterm elections, does Mike Johnson get kicked out of his job, and then Hakeem Jeffries becomes the speaker?
kind of, it's not automatic. What would have to happen is first they would have to have all of the members sworn in, and I could see Mike Johnson trying to play some fuck off games like he did with Representative Grijalva's seat and not
Yeah.
swear in that last member. Try to find reasons to adjourn the House and things like that. Once there are 218 sworn in members of the House of Representatives, then, being the majority party, the Democrats could call for a vote of no confidence in Mike Johnson. Simple vote on party lines. All 218 say yes. Mike Johnson's out as Speaker. Then they would have to hold a vote and until they select a speaker, no House business gets done. Assuming the Democrats back Hakeem Jeffries, he would be the speaker. But if there's infighting because they're pissed at Jeffries, who knows who could end up becoming the speaker?
Yeah, let's be honest. I don't know what the climate is down in Louisiana for Mike Johnson, but his value isn't very high right now, and he's up for election in 2026. He could lose the fucking thing.
Yeah, I don't know if he's getting primaried or not. Um, but he could. I mean, I think he's in a typically reliably safe district. But when you are seeing like that state house race in Texas, where they flipped a seat that was Trump plus 20 or something like that,
Yeah.
and he won by 10%. He flipped it by 31% of the vote. I mean, there are virtually no races in the country that are safe with those kind of margins. If you're talking Democrats able to gain 30 percentage points, and it's only going to get worse the closer we get to the midterm elections.
Yeah, and people have said, do you think Republicans are switching over and voting for Democrats? I don't know for sure, but I doubt that. I think what's happening is we're seeing Republicans just not coming out to vote and Democrats coming out in full force. I think that's the difference here in some of these special elections.
That's part of it, and I think part of it is the independent vote. The
True.
independents where you have, you know, like I claim to be an independent. I have voted Republican, Democrat, Independent. I have never regretted voting for a Democrat, even if they lost. But when you have independents coming out and now voting, going, yeah, in years past I voted for the Republican, not anymore. Fuck this shit. There's
Yeah.
a significant number of them. One of the problems the Democrats are going to have, when we've talked about it before, though, going into 2028, and even to some extent in the midterms. I've been in lives and I've seen people talking about it. I've seen videos and people talking about it. Like when it comes to the Texas Senate race and Talrico versus Jasmine Crockett. I was in somebody's live the other day. I think it was Tom Powell Jr.'s actually, and he was arguing with somebody in his comments who said if Talrico wins the Democratic nomination for Senate in Texas, he refuses to vote for Talrico. He'll stay home. Can't stand the Republicans, full on Democrat, but was still willing to stay home because did not like Jasmine Crockett or did not like Talrico for whatever reason, wanted Crockett. The Democrats, we can't do that. If you are in opposition to what the Republicans are doing, it's a or B choice. You've got the Democrat or you've got the Republican. The third party candidate doesn't have a choice, doesn't have a chance. If you are not going to vote, if you hate the Republican, you have to vote for the Democrat to give them a chance to win.
That's the interesting thing. I had Jace on, and Jace is from Texas, and we were talking about it, and he prefers Tellerico. And I don't usually get negative stuff in my comments, but there were a few people pissed off at him about picking Tellerico. The people who support Jasmine Crockett are pretty fervent, and you'll get accused of being just a white guy voting for the white guy, and you don't want to vote for the black woman. Um, Now, my preference to be the senator, I love James Tellerico, but I prefer Jasmine Crockett because I think she's more the type of person we need in Congress right now. Maybe not 3 years from now, but right now we need somebody like that, somebody that's a fighter. Secondly, the Republicans thought they owned Jasmine Crockett when they got rid of her district and she was out of a job. They thought, oh, good, we're free of her now. If she came back and became the senator, that would make their fucking heads explode. And just for that reason, I want Jasmine Crockett to win. But I think she has the right energy that we need. We need more Democrats like her. We don't need Chuck Schumer. We don't need Adam Schiff. We don't need some of these people who are just going along to get along. We need a fighter in there. And I'm not saying Tellerico isn't a fighter. He's just not the right kind of fighter. We're going against fucking despicable fucks, bullies, and we need somebody who can stand toe to toe with them and knock them down. And Tallarico might be able to out talk him, maybe politically um, be better politically, but and that's fine um, as a politician. But we're in a different fucking world now. We need somebody to kick some ass.
Yeah, if I was in Texas and I could vote, I would in the primary, my vote would be behind Jasmine Crockett. But and that's what the primary is for. You back the candidate you want to win
Right.
in the primary. The thing is, when it comes to November, whether it's Talrico or Crockett, one of them is going to be the Democratic nominee. If you don't want Ken Paxton or James Corman in there, you should vote for the Democrat. You just go that route. It's it you can't sit there and say, well, I didn't get my preferred candidate. I'm going to hold my breath until I get my preferred candidate, and I'm not going to vote. That's how you end up with Donald Trump. That is how you end up with this administration. That's how you end up with Speaker of the House Mike Johnson and all the bullshit we're dealing with now. We have to vote the opposition party. As you say all the time, let's get the Democrats in power, and then we can work on fixing the Democrats. They're
Right.
not perfect, but they're better than the shit show of Republicans. And if we want to put some roadblocks up against what Donald Trump is trying to do, electing Democrats and giving Democrats control of one or both chambers of Congress is the first step. But then we can't say, well, Democrats had control of Congress. Why did they fix it all? Because they still need the presidency to actually change things. It's just about getting a roadblock. This is a band-aid to stop the bleeding so we don't hemorrhage out come 2028. Come 2028, then we need to put the work in, get a Democrat elected, and then give them a Democratic controlled Congress so they can pass some shit, get some shit done, and fix everything that the Republicans have broken.
I think the best analogy I can give folks, if they don't understand that premise, is you're driving down the road and you get a flat tire. Okay. You don't sit there and wait till that tire's fixed. You put on the spare, you limp to a gas station, and then get the tire fixed properly. And that's what we have to do in this situation. We have to do what we have to do to get to a safe spot, and then we can focus on what we want. Because at this point, if you're voting in any election at this point to get some policy or some procedure that you want, you miss the fucking point. We're trying to save our lives here. And once we save our lives and we're safe, then we can work on the policies and stuff. Policies will come into play for the presidential election, certainly, but we've got to get these people out of there in order to be in a position to actually go after doing these policies. People have to take it a step at a time. They can't come in and say, I want everything right now the way I want it, because it's not going to happen. And if you can't get that, then don't fucking vote. I'm sorry. I'm t- if you look at the 2024 election and everybody's saying, why did we lose the 2024 election? What did Kamala do? What did the Democrats do? What did the Republicans do? It's a real simple answer. All you have to do is look at who came out to vote. Anywhere from 7 to 10 million Democrats did not vote at all. That voted in 2020, they didn't vote in 2024. That right there is the reason the Democrats lost. And we should be happy to understand that, because this is something we can control. It wasn't the messaging, it wasn't all the other shit people want to say. It's people sat on their asses and pouted and didn't fucking vote. So now to fix that, all we have to do is get motherfuckers to vote.
That was a big chunk of it. And we are still hearing people comment. And I kind of went on a rant about it. I think I was in Truckers Live, um, where somebody said, well, at least in 2028, there'll be an actual primary. And I kind of went off a little bit. And I'm like, motherfucker, there was a primary. The primary winner was Joe Biden with 90% of the vote. They
Right.
had 10 days or 12 days or some bullshit from the day he was forced out of the race to pick a candidate to replace him. The only choice was Kamala at that point. The only thing he did wrong was not resigning the presidency along with it. And then all of you fuckers who said, well, there wasn't a primary, would you have said the same thing if she was the incumbent president? Probably not. You would have said, oh, she's the incumbent president. That makes sense. It was just a reason to bitch. There wasn't time to do anything else. We had to make a choice. And the fact that Joe Biden was A, pressured into running, and then B, pressured into dropping out is a sad state of the Democratic Party.
Well, it really is. It really is. And like you say, these people that say, well, there wasn't a primary. Okay, if you wanted to have a primary, generally you have a primary and you have a once you have the primary, you have at least 6 or 7 months to mount a campaign. From the moment Kamala Harris stepped in, we had 90 days. Let's say it took another 30 days to have a primary. Now we got 60 days to whoever won that primary to mount a challenge, mount a campaign. It just didn't make any sense. This is again people saying, I want it my way, or otherwise I'm going to pout and cry and not vote. They did what they had to do at the moment, and whether you liked it or not didn't matter. The fact of the matter is, whether Kamala did all the policies you wanted or not, you should have had enough intelligence to say, okay, Kamala, she's maybe not everything I want, but Donald motherfucking Trump, I'd vote for a ham sandwich over Donald Trump. That should have been enough of an inducement to vote for Kamala Harris. But some dumb motherfuckers out there just can't get it through their fucking heads. They're going to pout, they're going to whine, they're going to cry, and they're going to fuck themselves in the end. And all of you that didn't vote for Kamala Harris, you're one of the main reasons why we're in this fucking mess. So congratulations.
Exactly. I mean, like I said, I think it would have been better for her if she would have been the incumbent president. It would have taken one of the steps out of it. People who were scared about having a woman president or a minority woman president or whatever, all of those fears would have been alleviated by her being in the role. But this is looking at it through hindsight. You know, we saw the outcome that what they did didn't work. So now we're trying to figure out and diagnose and go, what should we have done? Simple fact of the matter is, like we've been saying, we only have two options. Republicans are out to tear everything the fuck down, and it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
I don't think we've talked about it yet on the show, but before we went on, we were talking about Dr. Oz and his plans for the ACA. If
Wow.
the
Yeah.
Republicans continue doing their bullshit, stuff like that's going to be allowed to happen. And the Republicans think this is a winning strategy. I don't know why, but they think it's great.
When I sit and do the TikToks, I've been doing them for 5 years and whatever, and doing the podcast and all that stuff. If the voters in this country give the Republicans the House and the Senate and a Republican president, at that point, what can I do? It's all for naught. Talking about this stuff, trying to keep people informed about what's going on. But if even still, after all we've gone through, they still vote Republican, the fucking country's got to burn before people get it, apparently.
Well, they got to get bit in the ass, uh, when Republican policies start biting people in the ass, that's when they're going to wake up. Especially if you're in a red state and you voted Republican your entire life.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to bring something up because it involves my state, and it's Donald Trump. JD Vance announced that they are going to put a pause on Medicaid payments only to Minnesota. Donald Trump has a hard on for Minnesota because of Tim Walz, because of Ilhan Omar, because we're a blue state. He sends ICE in here, wreaks havoc, kills American citizens, kidnaps 5-year-old children. And now he wants to do this with Medicaid. And this particularly pisses me off. It's not because I don't get Medicaid. I do get Medicare, but I don't get Medicaid. But this is going to hurt the people that have struggled the most recently. This is about cruelty. There's really no reason for it. He's talking about fraud. He hates fraud, which is ironic because he's been convicted 34 times of fraud. His family has been convicted many times of fraud. He pardoned 33 major fraudsters, but now he wants to go after Minnesota, even though there's very little fraud to be found. And the impact it's going to have on these people, it's bad enough that you basically threw people off of the ACA, and now you want to kick people in Minnesota off of Medicaid. It's upsetting. I mean, I get to the point when I hear these things. I'm 65 years old. I'm beyond the age of squaring up with somebody and punching them in the fucking mouth, but I'm about ready right now.
Yeah, this whole bullshit about them claiming fraud. This has to do with some of the right wing bullshit with people who don't understand how anything fucking works. I think it was the same guy who tried to claim the Somali daycare fraud, that Nick Shirley or whatever the fuck his name was.
Yeah.
But he goes around, finds these centers where it's multiple clinics in one building. They all have different office suite numbers. Oh, see, fraud, fraud, fraud. It's fraud. There's multiple clinics here. It's fraud. No, motherfucker, that's just how shit works. They're all medical places. They've rented office buildings in close proximity because it makes sense for them to be in close proximity. And then I think it's even the same dumb motherfucker who went out to someplace in California and found an apartment building that has a UPS store on the ground level, and they all share an address with the UPS store, and say, "Well, see, everybody's got their mail coming to this UPS store. It's all fraud." But you look up, you can see apartments all the way above it. It's all the mailboxes are all for the residents of the apartment building. They just have the same address.
Right.
These dumb fuckers don't know what the fuck's going on. The cruelty is the point, and they're thinking that they're going to get away with cutting Medicaid to these areas. But every time they've tried cutting federal funds like this, almost every single time federal judges come in and go, no, can't do that. Congress controls the purse. Congress allocated the money. You got to spend it. Fuck yourself.
Yeah, the only problem I have with it is there still may be a delay while they go through this bullshit court process, and people are going to suffer and struggle. Um, and it's very tiring. Did you hear Nick Shirley made the news yesterday too?
No.
Again, yeah. We were talking about the Hillary Clinton testimony, right? And it was behind closed doors, and so you're not supposed to take any pictures while this is going on. Big surprise, Lauren Boebert did take a picture of Hillary Clinton in the session, sent it off to Nick Shirley. Of course, he posted it or publicized it in some way. And that threw everything in the hearing in a tizzy. I think they had to shut it down after that point because that was a breach of some sort that's intolerable by the oversight committee or by Congress in general. But Nick Shirley, once again, fucks another thing up. And he fucked it up for the Republicans. I mean, it's a Republican, Lauren Boebert, who sent the photo. She's in all kinds of trouble. That's why if I'm Lauren Boebert, because she kind of hinted at it before, I'd say, I'm tired of your bullshit. I'm quitting today. And watch those fuckers run around like chickens with their heads cut off.
She might. I mean, she had to switch districts just to save her seat because she was afraid of getting her ass kicked. And how embarrassing would it be for her to switch districts to a safe Republican district and then be voted out in November in what should be a safe race? Um, but they've got no class, they've got no decorum. If it was the other way around and it was Donald Trump sitting there being deposed for his role in the Epstein files and a Democrat took a photo, we wouldn't be hearing the end of it. MAGA and the
Yeah.
Republicans would be losing their goddamn minds. It's the simple fact that it was a way to embarrass Hillary Clinton, who's been their boogeyman since her days as Secretary of State and probably since her days as First Lady.
Well, and if you saw her do her speech afterwards, they weren't very successful in embarrassing her. She seemed pretty entrenched and irritated, justifiably so. Um, but again, the Republicans fucked up by bringing in Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. They set a precedence that Congress wouldn't normally do, bringing in a president or a former president or a former first lady or anything like that. Now that they have, that leaves the door wide open for calling in Donald Trump, Melania Trump, anybody else. There is no limitations anymore. There is no professional courtesy. They wouldn't normally subpoena a former president, but they did now. So that opens the door for Democrats when they're in a position to subpoena the likes of Donald Trump or one of his family members.
The only thing that's going to save Donald Trump from a congressional subpoena is a Big Mac.
Yeah, that's
I,
that's absolutely true.
the Big Mac is I mean, and I think it's coming. I don't think he's got long left. I would be surprised if he makes it the year. But you're right. They've set the precedent now, which means when JD Vance is out of power, because I think JD Vance is going to be our next president, he's going to be the next accident that we end up having to deal with.
Yeah.
Um, but he won't get, no matter what happens, unless he pulls some miracle out of his ass and rights the ship, which I don't think he's got the ability or the intelligence to do.
Well, he needs the Congress to do that, and he won't have the Congress.
Well, the only way, I mean, if he is enacting intelligent legislation, I could see the Democrats backing him if the stuff makes sense. The problem is,
Did you
but the
say
problem is,
intelligent governing? That's a good one. That's a good one.
yeah, the problem is they're not going to be doing that. He's going to be having to walk a tightrope between not disparaging the Trump legacy and everything. The Republican Party itself is going to give him marching orders telling him to try to fix the ship, but they're also going to tell him, basically hog tie him for what he can actually do. He's probably only going to make it worse because he's also going to try to not alienate the MAGA voter because he's going to need them to get reelected. He's in a no-win situation. The whole scenario actually makes it look bad. Um, there's no way I can see him ever getting reelected. But the only way the Democrats work with him is if it's common sense stuff that would actually work.
Yeah.
And that would be
Yeah.
his only chance toward getting reelected. But everything else is going to work against him. So there's no way he ever does it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting toward the end. I got a couple quick things I want to ask you about because I want your input on it. Supreme Court comes out, says Donald Trump's tariffs are illegal. People in other countries are saying, well, they're illegal. You're no fucking deal. And he says, well, if there's no deal, then I'm going to give you more tariffs, which is odd because they just told him you can't do tariffs. He's going another angle that won't work either. But he's talking about global tariffs. And it's just, what do you think is going to happen with this tariff situation? To me, I kind of hope he continues doing it up until the midterms because it'll cause more problems for him and the Republican Party. Keep fucking with it all you can. I mean, we're already suffering through it now. You don't want him to. I'm afraid if he stops the tariffs, then things get better. Then he'll get some benefit from it, and I don't want to see that.
Yeah, I don't think he will stop doing it because he still thinks he's right. Now, this new batch of tariffs, the way I understand it, the law he is pointing at to use is something about balance of payments, equity, or something. Basically, he can say, well, the ledger isn't balanced between your country and the United States. So we're going to put a tariff on to try to balance the scales a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's got the ability to do up to 15% for 150 days. But now he went and said, well, every country, every product, 150 or 150 days, 15%. Congress would have to approve them beyond that. Mike Johnson says they don't have the votes to extend them. He's already said that. But the thing is, when these tariffs, these new ones go to court, he's going to lose
Yeah.
because in the Supreme Court case where he argued for the last batch of tariffs, they said that the reason for the tariffs wasn't because of deficit
An
of payments or
emergency.
whatever. Yeah,
Right.
they said it was an emergency. It wasn't this other reason that justifies the law he's now trying to use.
Right.
And they even talked about that law in the case. His DOJ did, and said, no, that law is not what we're trying to use here. It doesn't apply. They've already shot themselves in the foot. It's going to be a joke. He's going to keep trying to do it like a petulant child. And you're right. If they somehow go completely away, he might get a little bit of a benefit. The problem is these companies aren't going to lower their prices. They've already got us paying more.
Right.
And we need to do something. I don't know what the something is, but these companies need to hurt because this is bullshit.
It is absolute bullshit. And I think we're too deep into it for him to come back out of this no matter what happens. Bottom line is we still all get fucked because we're paying higher prices. Last thing I wanted to ask you about was this whole Iran thing. We seem to be on the precipice of possibly bombing Iran. I personally think that the reason we're even considering bombing Iran because either Donald Trump wants to do his buddy Benjamin Netanyahu a solid, or Benjamin Netanyahu has some leverage over him. It sounds like Donald Trump wants to do it, and sounds like the people around him are trying to keep him from doing it. Donald Trump usually ends up doing what he wants to do, regardless of what people think. How do you think that's going to shake out?
I don't know because I heard this through other TikTokers, and I don't know if there's any truth to this. But supposedly the head of Iran came out basically, or one of their spokesmen came out and said, basically, you bomb us, we have pictures you don't want released. We'll release them.
They did say that?
That's what I've seen other TikTokers say. I don't know for sure that that is true,
Now,
but
see, that's, yeah, something I've heard is that Netanyahu's doing the same thing. That's why
I
Donald
heard
Trump
that
is so
too.
in. I
That
don't
he's
know if
between a
that's
rock and
true.
a hard place.
Yeah, no matter which way he goes, somebody's going to release some pictures if that's true. Now, I don't know if it's true, but I hope it's true. I really hope it's true because he can't win.
Well, the thing is, I think they're going to have to really talk him off this ledge. But he may try it. The problem is he doesn't realize how dumb again this makes him look because he has you know he's already bombed Iran once, end of last year. Said, "Oh, we completely shut them down. We set them back by decades." Now suddenly they're weeks away from making
Yeah.
nuclear weapons again. Well, which is it? Did you set them back by decades, or were they able to recover way faster than you thought, or did you not do shit? And I don't know how he gets out of this one. I think he's going to find an off ramp. Maybe they come to some kind of a peaceful term of some kind.
You know what they
Um,
could do? You know what they could do? They could come up with some nuclear plan that they both could agree on, and then we'd get through with it. Problem is we already had that, and Donald Trump threw it away. So now he's talking about going to war to get a nuclear plan that we already fucking had. That's why I said in a TikTok, it's like Munchausen's by proxy, where a mom makes a kid sick so they can save them and revive them. That's exactly what Donald Trump does. He creates a problem and then he wants to be the hero. The only problem is every time he does it, he fucks it up.
well, yeah, like the whole thing with the deal with Iran. Prior to Barack Obama getting that deal, Donald Trump came out first saying that the president is going to bomb Iran because he can't negotiate. Then he came out and said the president is going to bomb Iran because his poll numbers are bad. And then he came out and said the president is going to bomb Iran to prove that he is a tough guy. Well, Jesus motherfucking Christ, all three of those apply to Donald motherfucking Trump.
Yeah, they absolutely do. They absolutely do. All right, I'm going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. Let folks know where they can find you.
Well, you can find me over on TikTok for the little bit TikTok lets my videos out of jail. At Analytical Iowan. You can find me on YouTube at Analytical Iowan, Spotify at Analytical Iowan, or over on Blue Sky, also at Analytical Iowan. Over on YouTube and Spotify, you can get everything I post up on TikTok, as well as my own podcast, the Analytical Iowan podcast, where I do a mostly daily show, um, covering a lot of stuff that I can get into a little deeper with than I can in the time frame I give myself for the TikToks.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So if you haven't checked in with the Analytical Iowan, Eric, you should probably do that. Uh, if you haven't done it by now, I don't know what the fuck's wrong, but by all means, do that. Thank you, Eric, for coming on. For those of you listening, thank you for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you tomorrow.